So we are back for our very first episode of Fertility Fair via audio and video. So, things might go a little crazy this time, but my first amazing guest who agreed, through a sliding of DMs is Jelissa, and she is here to bring us some words of encouragement, but also some real testimony about what she's been through. So, Jelissa, thank you for joining.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you for sliding into
Absolutely.
my DMs.
Look, I'm gonna say it again. If I'm gonna do one thing, I will slide into DMs, and I have done this now for like 2 years, and usually it works out pretty well. So I'm gonna keep doing it. But when
Mhm.
I see amazing stories or profiles, I just, I'm like, hey, what do I have to lose? I come from a sales background. All you can say is no or ignore
Yeah,
me, and that's cool either way.
yeah.
But I've been following your profile for some time on the Fertility Fair side, and I wanted to reach out because you have a lot that you can unpack for us on this episode. So, before we jump into all things, what's going on, what your story is, what you've been through, the first thing that I ask any of my guests is, as of today, in this moment, right now, how do you define yourself? What are those words or phrases that describe Jalissa today?
Um, Now I really define myself as being Yvette's mother, only because that's really all I have left of her.
Mhm.
Before I probably would say like my favorite color is purple. I like cats and whatever, but now like my um who I am is her mother. And an advocate to this baby loss, infertility, and IVF community.
That's amazing. And I know we're going to get into who she was and who she is to you still, as you mentioned, in this current moment in your life. So, on your profile, you talk about after infertility, after loss, after losing a child. But to get to all of those after things and to be in this place of, healing on some level, we have to discuss what happened before. So I want to get into first the journey to motherhood for you. I think it mentioned 6 years in your bio, right? I think that was the initial number. And I resonate because we are literally going into our 6th year of this journey. And so you decide, okay, I want to have children. I want to start, looking at, starting this family or, adding children to the family. So what was that like for you, and how did you arrive to the IVF world?
Okay, so let's go back. No, I'm just kidding. Let's go back like
Listen,
20
however
more.
you want to put it.
Um, so my husband and I got married in 2017. Um, and so like once you get married, you're like, okay, let's start. For us, it was like, okay, let's start to
Mhm.
try and have a family. Um, and we were trying for a really long time, even before we actually got married.
Mhm.
Um, we were trying to conceive, and then it just one day I realized, like, we've been trying for like 2 years, and we haven't had any pregnancy scare or anything like that. So I decided to, start the journey of trying to see, like, what's going on. So I started um, all of the fertility tests that they do at an IVF clinic. Um, I got every single test done that you can think of for, initial, um, like, IVF treatments. Um, and we were then just diagnosed with unexplained infertility.
Mhm.
Um, so that was when we were living in Connecticut, and then a few years later, we moved to Florida, where we live right now, and I decided to get a second opinion because then at that point, it was, like, 3 more years after that where we still didn't get pregnant or anything at all. Then my husband so we went to the second clinic, and they asked my husband to do a semen analysis, and then to get his antibodies checked. And it just turned out that he has 99% chance, like 99% of antibodies in his sperm. And so that just gave us a 1% chance of being able to conceive naturally. And so we just,
Time out. That was a
yeah.
lot. Okay, okay, so we're married. We tried before we get married. We were doing the same thing actually. We were like, let's try before. Um, and then okay, so a couple years go by. Did you have prior to that, did you have any inclination that, there could be anything that would, hinder or, the chances of conceiving naturally? Like anything OBGYN related or, any of those factors before? Nothing.
No, it wasn't even a thought in my mind. I didn't even know. I mean, like, like there are some people who like struggle to get pregnant, but I didn't think that was going to be me. Especially like, okay, I got all of this entire workup done, and they diagnosed us with unexplained infertility. So I thought, okay, maybe it's just not the time, or no, whatever. Like you're trying to make an excuse for why it's not working to make yourself feel better. Um, but then we were finally given an actual diagnosis, and so that made a lot of sense. But then it also kind of, you know, the thought of we just wasted so much time. Like if the first clinic would have just done this one little test, we could have like saved a lot of time, and we could have probably already have done IVF in another state that actually pays for IVF treatment, depending on medical conditions, etc. But here we are still.
So the first clinic, did they ever do a semen test on your husband at all, or was it the antibodies? Was that specific test what was required to, I guess, get like an actual diagnosis, or like was he not like tested at all at the first clinic?
So what's crazy is I honestly don't even remember if he was tested or not, but he remembers being tested at the first clinic. They just never tested him for antibodies according to him. Which I should remember these things because like this is our fertility life, but I can't remember to save my life.
A lot's happened. So,
Yeah, it's
I hear you.
I don't know if
I
I
hear you.
dissociated or
Yeah,
something. And
yeah.
but it wasn't until like, okay, I'm in Florida, and now I know a little bit more about infertility and things like that. And the doctor explained a lot more to us. And he basically said, okay, well, you got all the testing done and everything looks fine based off of like the medical records that they sent to us. So let's just make sure that your husband is fine. So they added that one more test.
That's interesting. Okay, so and when it comes to, because I haven't heard this before, so antibodies, that 1% chance to naturally conceive. So I guess at that point, what are the next steps for that? Like, is IVF, I guess, the only way to go, or an IUI, or are there other things that can be done? And why are the antibodies, I guess, so important in this diagnosis?
So just to explain antibodies, like sperm antibodies, it's basically you have an antibody in your body, like Hashimoto's or something, where your sperm is attacking itself, and so that basically just like unalives all of the sperm.
Wow.
Um, I mean, you can get checked. You have great, like sperm count, mobility, all of the other checks you can check off, and it's just the antibodies was just the one thing that just gave us the because he had 9%, 99% of antibodies, that only gave us the 1%. So our next step to try and conceive was to do IVF with ICSI, which
Mhm.
it's like injecting the sperm. They had to like cut off the tail of the sperm because apparently the antibodies on the tail.
Wow.
Um, and this is the information that was given to me by my IVF doctor. So, they cut off the tail and then they put the head of the sperm into the egg and then create the embryo that way. And so IUI doesn't make sense because it's just insemination. And if the
Right.
sperm isn't technically viable, then there really is no point.
Wow. So one, I didn't know you could cut it off like that. I didn't even know you could do that. So
Yeah,
I mean, learn something new here every day.
yeah.
That's interesting. Okay, so but you're so as long as you remove the tail, you're still able to use the sperm to make embryos. And so at that point in time, how many embryos were you all able to create?
Um, I think we had 11. Um, yeah, I should know this, but I think we had 11, and then we transferred 1 in January of 2021, um, which that led to my miscarriage. That first transfer led to my miscarriage.
Okay. Talk us through miscarrying and what it felt like. Was this the first time first conceiving? Was this your first conception?
Yeah, it was my first time ever in my life being pregnant. Joke's on me, I took a plan B, like, 3 years before any of this happened,
We all
even
have.
though knowing that, what was the point?
Right.
So funny
Been
now.
there, been there. Yes, understand. I'm like, yeah, haha, that was funny. Birth control, what a joke.
Yeah.
But yeah, and okay, also that resonates. We had our very, very first ever conception. Um, oh God, now it's been December of 2022 because my goodness, my years. Yeah, going into 23, and it ended in a loss. So talk us through what that was like and how you were able to move through that space.
So I found out I was pregnant January 2021. I think it was like January 28th or something. Um, and for the first few weeks, I had a really good pregnancy. All I did was sleep the whole entire time, which was amazing. Um, but I had hemorrhaging, a lot of hemorrhaging from like week 10 until I gave birth to Yvette until I was 19 weeks. I bled like throughout my whole entire pregnancy. Um, but it wasn't until my I was at a routine checkup. I was 19 weeks and 5 days. And at that appointment, they couldn't find her heartbeat after like multiple tries of trying to find it. And then they just informed me that, uh, the hospital was gonna call me so I can go in and have a procedure done, is what they said. But I actually go into the hospital, I'm actually giving full birth to my daughter. They induced me, and I was in labor for, like, 24 hours. No, like, 12 hours, sorry, because I gave birth to her at midnight. Um, and then ever since then, Um, you said the words like, "How did you move through it?" And it's really hard. Sometimes I feel like I'm still back at that first day, but there are days where I see how much I have grown and how much I have healed throughout this very complex grief journey. I see myself when I am doing IVF. I did another 2 rounds of a frozen embryo transfer that were unsuccessful, and every time I'm doing IVF, I feel like my whole healing journey kind of goes back to 0 because for IVF is just a very traumatic it's just a very hard experience for me where, a lot of women I see, like, don't find IVF to be so complex, but for me, it's, like, the worst thing on this planet. I hate IVF. I mean, I'm grateful, like, it's such a beautiful, like, science thing that they did, but I hate IVF so much. I literally I can't even I hate it so much. I hate the medications, the hormones. My whole entire body goes into, like, shock, it feels like, where I turn into, like, a whole totally different human being, and it takes, like, a few months for my body to get back to its, like, natural homeostasis.
No, you're not wrong and you're not crazy. Like I was like, in theory, I can put up with the medication, I could put up with the shots, but I think in terms of like your hormone imbalance, like you said, like trying to get yourself back to like, who the hell was I before I started this? Because I'm not sure at this point. Like, I don't know. It's hard to like find that girl again. And I'm not sure if we ever like find them 100% again because we're just very, very changed from doing this multiple times.
Mhm.
But I'm glad that you said that and just being like honest about it because again, like you said, for some people it may not be the worst thing ever, but I feel like if we're all going to be honest, like this is not something that somebody I would assume would choose.
Mhm.
Not the way we want to go about doing something that we thought was going to be natural.
Mhm.
I hate using the word natural now, but spontaneous, as they say.
Mhm.
But I thank you for saying that because I don't ever want anyone to feel like they just can't be honest about this is hard.
Mhm.
It's hard physically and it's hard emotionally. And you, like I said, you grieve every single time something does not work out. And you feel like you've gotten better and you've gotten through, but then you end up, like I said, like at zero again.
Mhm.
And it's just like I feel like sometimes we also don't have time to heal cycle to cycle because they usually want you to just, let's just try it again. I'm like, do you know what it means to
Yes.
start again? Like, not only the money part, child, but like, do you know what it means to
Yeah.
start from day one of stems again? Like the mental gymnastics I have to go through to get myself ready. Like, so thank you for saying that because
Mhm.
it's not, I think people need to be okay with being honest about it and not just being like, I mean, it's not that bad. Really? Are you sure? Are you being honest with
I
yourself?
mean, I've seen that on, like, reality TV where, like, women get their eggs, frozen, and, I mean, I, like, completely agree. I think getting your eggs frozen is a great first step, um, but you can't compare how your situation went with freezing your eggs with anyone else's situation.
Mhm.
Um, Everyone reacts differently to literally everything in life, and so just saying like, "Oh, like, people over exaggerate," like, no, you don't really know how someone's body is going to react to all of this medication, and for me, every time I've never been on birth control, the only time I've been on birth control has been because of IVF, and the last 2 times that I've been on birth control, I've had really bad suicidal ideations and really bad anxiety, and I, like, kept asking my doctor, like, "Can we do a natural cycle? Like, these meds are, like, not doing it for me. I'm not okay, and I'm, like, losing it." And like you said, like, I've spent, like, months, like, after Yvette passed away, I spent 2 years trying to get myself back to, like, not being depressed, basically, like, trying to, like, figure out my life all over again, and then once you do another IVF cycle, it's just like you have to start all over again. You have to, like, build yourself back up on this ladder.
Yeah.
So and mental health is really important to me due to, like, everything that I've been through, and so when people or doctors just say, like, "Just do another cycle," or just keep trying," like, you have absolutely no idea what any of this even means. You have no idea how it feels. You apparently have a billions of dollars that you just want me to go and do another cycle.
Billion.
I
Right.
don't.
I was like, are y'all paying is it on you this time? Is it like buy one, get one free? Like, what are we
I won't count free.
it should be. It really should be. But I'm also glad that you brought up the mental health aspect. I know for me, that's been probably the hardest challenge. That's again, it's not something that I figured out, at this point. I just kind of deal with it as it comes. So you mentioned suicidal thoughts, you mentioned anxiety due to medication, but obviously going through all of this, losing a child, well, first of all, going through infertility by itself, having a live child or not, is traumatic. And it has its own levels of, I think, PTSD and grief and anxiety and depression and all those things. So, and then losing a child on top of that. So, how have you been able to, uh, I don't want to say get to a 100% healed space, but how have you been able to navigate your mental health and what are the things that you have done to help you maneuver through all of these just insurmountable challenges?
So I've been on like this journey of I call it like my healing journey, and I have a long list of things that I have done to try and make myself feel better. But like number one, I've been trying to find a really good therapist. That has been a challenge within itself because there aren't that many perinatal mental health therapists. There aren't even that many therapists that even understand what IVF is. I see myself constantly having to explain the IVF world to them, and that's just like really a waste of time for me. Um, I spend a lot of time like I'm very spiritual, and so I spend a lot of time doing a lot of energy healing, like Reiki, a lot of meditation, tapping, a lot of yoga. I mean, I don't want to sit here and list like all the things that I've done, but I think, like, really being in this community of other lost mothers, has really helped me and, a lot of IVF warriors who contact me on social media, and just tell me, like, my story gives them strength or, like, they can really understand everything that I've been through. I think the support has been, like, literally everything I didn't know I needed. Um so I really have to give, like, this community, like, the sole reason as to why I feel like I'm like, still, like, trying to get to a better place.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I feel like probably the most supported I felt outside of like husband and my mom, close family has been from strangers. Um,
Mhm,
as you mentioned, like on social media or on Facebook groups, or I joined just last end of last year, like an in-person infertility support group, like locally, and that resonates. Like I feel like I have felt most able to maneuver and like find some sense of healing and peace because of these different communities. So I definitely understand that. And I know you also mentioned that you have found community in, lost mother or lost motherhood. And so I saw on your Instagram page that you are starting your baby loss coaching business. So
mhm,
that's super exciting. But I have to know, I've asked this question to a number of other fertility coaches who have gone through it, came through whatever that means for them. Either it means having a child, not having children, moving forward with loss, etc. And then starting a business to help somebody else out, because they just felt like there wasn't someone who was there, as you mentioned, that was in the space to help them because they just don't, you don't get it if you don't know.
mhm.
You haven't been through it. So, how did you arrive upon, okay, like I'm in a place where I can help somebody else, shoulder what they're going through, because I imagine as rewarding as it's going to be, it could also be very triggering. So,
Mhm.
how did you decide, okay, I want to do this, I'm ready for this next step, and tell us about kind of the journey to get to that place?
Yeah, so, there was, like I said, I've been, like, looking for a therapist, and there was a point in time where I was literally crying because I would call a therapist and see if they were, certified in perinatal mental health, and they would either not be available anymore or they're just not taking any patients because they're full, whatever may be, and I was calling, like, 10 different places, and it just became extremely overwhelming, and so that sort of led me to, okay, well, if there is absolutely no one to help me, like, obviously I need to like find I need to make the help. I need to make this resource available to grieving parents who cannot find this resource. Like if I'm literally crying and feeling overwhelmed over an hour of trying to find someone and I haven't, then there's obviously a problem. And so at that time as well, I enrolled to get my master's in social work so I can become a therapist. But in the meantime, I wanted to start my loss coaching program to be able to provide that assistance in the meantime because I just feel like the world can't wait another 3 years for me to get like my license and all of that. Um, so I'm actually really excited, and I have thought about the, like the effects that it can have on my mental health. And there are times when I do ask myself, like, is this healthy for me? Should I be involving myself in so much grief with other families that are going through the same thing that I am? Um, and like the pros just outweigh the cons for me. And I have learned how to not really like separate my emotions from theirs, but more like learning how to be able to assist them and not involve my own biases or values or like disclosure or anything like that, because at the end of the day my sole purpose, and I feel like my daughter gave me this purpose, is to be able to help other grieving mothers, because I've seen in this community that I mean, of course, like, a lot of women are hurting, and there isn't that resource available to be able to help them or to be able to guide them through this journey, or to understand, like, why are they feeling this way, or how they can just navigate their grief.
Well, I know that it's going to help a lot of people. And I do hope that, like, in this journey, it's also still healing for you.
Mm.
I'm sure it's very therapeutic on many levels for you as well to be a part of these conversations and to know that you're helping somebody and that your daughter's life absolutely gave you this purpose. And so it's a way to honor her. And how what are the ways in which that you also have began or over the last couple of years have honored your daughter's her life and really her legacy at this point? Like, what are the things that you have done, whether it was on an annual basis or just day to day to kind of honor your daughter?
Yeah, so, I've done a few things for her. The first thing that I did was, every single year, I just bake her a cake for her birthday, and we sing happy birthday to her. Um, there was a year where I gathered a lot of babies that have passed away and, put their names on balloons and did a balloon release. I started a Lost Mama Connection event, which is like an online platform where we have a speaker who talks about any, topic that pertains to grief. So like toxic positivity or like setting boundaries, things like that. Um, and up to 100 moms can join this platform and be able to like meet other women that know exactly what they're going through. So I hold this event every other month. I'm also in the process of starting another little project with another lost mom. Um, and I mean, I'm in her room. And so I think just being in her room just brings me a lot closer to her. Um, I mean, sorry, I did not mean to
We're
curse.
good. We're good here. It's a safe
Um,
space.
I think about her all the time, 24/7. It's really hard not to think about, your daughter who's supposed to be here with you. So I feel like everything I do really is for her and to honor her. And, I actually was hanging out with a new friend that I just met. And I work from home. I don't really spend a lot of time like out in this world. So I found myself talking a lot about my daughter. Everything like was like my daughter this, my daughter that, my daughter this. And I realized like, wow, I actually talk a lot about her, and I am grateful that, the other person listening doesn't feel like, like, okay, girl, that's enough. Like, stop talking about your dead kid. Like, we got it. So being able to talk about her really, I think it really helps me grieve, because like
Yeah.
with other parents who have living children talk about their kids 24/7 and get to say their names all the time, but we don't.
That's a really, really good point. That's a good point. And I don't think probably enough, parents of loss feel that acceptability, I guess, to be able, as you said, talk about their kid and, say their name out loud. And, I think the fact that you're doing it and you said that will definitely empower somebody else. Like, you know what? Yeah, I can do that too. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's my process, my child, my journey, and if you're not okay with it, then I'll talk to somebody else.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, so that's really amazing. So if someone wants to connect with you as we wrap up, first, thank you. Thank you for coming on here again. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for bringing Yvette to the table and into our podcast today. But if someone wants to connect with you on socials, online, please share where they can do that.
So I'm on Instagram. It's just Rainbow Manifestations. And then I have my website too, which is www.rainbowmanifestations.com. And that's all I have because I'm very simple. I don't have any. I
That's enough.
don't
Well, congratulations also on your new business venture, on all the things that you have coming this year in 2024. Looking forward to continue to follow your journey. And of course, I will connect anyone who reaches out who needs your services or just your spirit along on their paths. I know you're open to it. So thank you for joining Fertility Fair, and we're looking forward to seeing what else happens with your
Thank you
business.
so much.